Hello, everyone. Welcome to Opinions New by Dr. Frank T.H. Frank. In this episode, I want to talk to you about the possibility of default on the Phase 1 deal, trade deal between the United States and China. Okay. There seems to be more and more evidence that could be ending up in default by the Chinese side. And we found that we have heard that President Trump, failed somewhat, uncomfortable about the execution of the Phase 1 deal. Okay, and I had an interview with the Voice America last week. It seemed to me this deal, Phase 1 deal, faces at least three, challenges. Enabling it or making it almost impossible for China to fulfill. Okay? In addition, there is a worsening situation of the Chinese economy and struggling American economy. Pandemics, worldwide, spread, and seeing an end to it, but it's still not over yet, right? So the trade relationships between the two countries seems to be, in jeopardy. Okay, the Phase 1 trade deal between U.S. and China, after almost 2 years of negotiation, lengthy negotiations, finally the two sides signed a deal on January the 15th this year. Okay, and then the February the 14th this year. Okay, is on Valentine's Day. Yeah, but the relationship between the two countries is far from being my Valentine, right? Now, up to today, there has been 3 months, since the deal started in effect, right? But the situation is not that good. Okay, and according to the deal, American side agreed to lower the tariff on Chinese products, about $120 billion worth of Chinese product, uh, lower that to tariff to about 7.5%, half of that. Okay, but America will keep the original 25% tariff, $250 billion worth of Chinese products at the same level. Okay, unchanged. And the Chinese, on the other side, on the other hand, will remain or maintain their tariffs on $110 billion worth of U.S. products. Right. In the trade agreement, the two sides talked about free access to the markets and the market entry, right? Open and free operation of businesses, no forced technology transfer, keep administrative and regulative environment transparent, and enable the businesses to keep their trade secret. And also, as to the administration or the execution of the laws or the judicial procedures, both sides agree, want to assure the other side that it's going to be transparent and fair, right? And both sides also agree not to devaluate their currencies for price competition. Okay, that's in the agreement. Also in the agreement, China will buy more of U.S. products, agricultural products, and industrial products and services. Right. In the next 2 years, since the start of the deal, China will buy $200 billion more of American goods and services on top of the 2017 baseline value. So the $200 billion more, including, in 2 years, $40 billion worth of agricultural products. Okay. And since the deal started, or the agreement, started to become effective 3 months ago, during the 3 months, there have been other activities, things going on. Okay, First, on February the 10th, USTR Trade Representative Office announced that the US will not recognize China, India, South Africa, and Brazil, and both 25 countries, as developing countries. In other words, you don't recognize them as developing countries, and that's something and that made the Chinese, very uncomfortable. They're not happy with that. They've been trying to use this developing country label, to their advantage, right? Even though in beginning on February the 28th, China waived the additional taxes on about 65 different types of American products, and to show Americans some goodwill. But still, China seems not buying enough, to please Americans. Right? And also, China, starting on March the 2nd, their State Department also, loosened up a lot of restrictions on American imports into China. But still, the American side does not seem to be too excited about that. So why did I say that the trade deal, execution trade deal, face three challenges? Okay, first challenge, I believe, is because of this CCP virus and Wuhan pandemic, because of the cheating and the hiding of the true and not revealing, true information by the Chinese Communist Party, by Chinese regime, and national community missed some very important time, in the beginning, to deal with, develop ways, means to deal with the pandemic. And also, they did not realize the significance, the seriousness of the epidemic. And not only that, China, delayed or hid all those information. China also hoarded medical supplies and like masks and ventilators and other personal protective equipment, PPEs, right? And also they used what they hoarded, medical supplies, as a way to demand other countries like France and Germany to give in on their demand on other things, such as asking the French government to allow Huawei, Chinese company, to gain contract on their 5G network in exchange for their supplying the masks to France, right, and etc. Right, and also the U.S. government, high-level U.S. government officials have been asking to investigate to the origin of the virus, and or if there's an accidental leak in this. But the Chinese government, they refused, right? They refused, and also they use their foreign diplomats and their journalists, state-sponsored journalists. They were insulting Trump administrations, officials from Trump administration, like Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Trump's trade advisor, Peter Navarro. Right? So that's no wonder, President Trump feels uncomfortable, uneasy about this the execution of the trade deal. Seemed to me that at least politically, two sides, high levels, government officials, do not have the political will or political trust toward each other, and the execution of the deal, I think, has to be discounted. Okay? The second challenge, I think, is because Chinese economy, you know, because of the lockdown of the city of Wuhan, the province of Hubei, Hubei province, and many other cities, major cities, because of the lockdown, the slowdown of economic activities, and Chinese economy suffered a lot. Okay? Even after China reopened, the factories found that they do not have the orders from international orders from Western countries, America and Europe, right? And therefore, unemployment is on the rise, right? With the export in decline and the reduction in their foreign exchange reserve, which make the which makes the Chinese side, very difficult to purchase American products, including agricultural products and energy products. In other words, they don't have the hard currency. They don't have the foreign exchange reserve. Don't have money to pay for their purchases. Okay, that's the second challenge. Here's the third challenge. We all know that in the last 2 months, there have been drastic changes in the global energy market, right? And there's a price war between Saudi Arabia and Russia, OPEC and OPEC plus countries, right? And the price of oil, has decreased down to a record low level in the 20s and 30s dollars per barrel, okay, from the high of $100 per barrel. Okay? And we even had this kind of like bizarre news where, about a couple of weeks ago, the futures contract of oil, turned to be negative in value. In other words, somebody poor guy, who lost big time on their short contract, had to pay someone to buy the contract to oil. Okay, but it doesn't happen all the time, but it happened. Okay, so also since the Chinese economy is not rebounding as much as they expected, so the demand for energy is also decreasing in China. So in addition, the strategic reserves of oils in many countries, including America, is being exhausted. Countries like America, uh, we have been buying those cheap oils to put in their strategic reserves. Okay? But that still is not easing the oversupply of oil in the global market. Okay? We have seen huge tankers, oil tankers, filled with oil floating outside, in the open sea outside of Los Angeles. We have seen that. Okay? So even if China still wants to buy, American energy product, natural gas for oil, yeah, because cannot match, what to buy in $70 billion worth of oil. You know? So making it harder for China to fulfill their the promise in the trade deal. Okay. So in other words, if you look at the two countries, the relationship politically and ability or money, cash to purchase, and also changes in global energy market, that makes the China very likely to be able to fulfill their promise in the deal, in my opinion. Okay. Also in May, in early May, Chinese Vice Premier Liu He and U.S. Treasury Representative, Lizer, and also Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, they had the teleconference. They felt the both sides expressed their so-called confidence in the fulfillment of the deal. And Chinese official media said that the both sides will quote create some favorable conditions for the countries to fulfill the deal, the first phase deal. Okay, you think about that. The both the countries, officials from both countries, high level officials say they have the confidence. They're confident, right? Really, you really think so? I don't think so. Right? Even if they don't have much confidence, they will not say that, right? Right? In other, but from on the other hand, think about that. The two countries, they have a deal. They have a contract to fulfill. It it's just a matter, it's a done deal. They should just go ahead, move ahead, proceed with the deal, carry it out. Why do they need to create so-called favorable environment and conditions? Why do they need to do that? Right? You should have already had those. You should have had those conditions, environment ready for the execution of the deal. Right. In other words, if you need have to create something, an environment or conditions for that to carry out, to be carried out. I guess there is not enough, not in a good enough environment out there, or not enough conditional conditions that being met for you to carry it out. Okay. Also, during my interview with the Voice America, the TV host asked me a question. What do you think about the phase two deal? Okay. Well, and also he asked, if Beijing could not fulfill the promise on the phase one deal, what's the chance of opening a new round of trade war? My answer to that question, not good, because I think there is a big chance that the relationship, trade and economic relationship between the two countries become worse and worse. Because for one, if the phase one deal, is going to die, you know, why can how could there be the second round, a new trade war, a new trade talk? Okay? I don't think there will be a new trade talk or trade war anymore. I think it could be just be sanctions, economic sanctions on the American side, on the Chinese, because if the first phase one deal cannot be fulfilled, that means that all the problems, the source problems, the problem that is the problem that led to the phase one talk, we all have to re-emerge, okay? And that will force the United States, Trump administration, President Trump, to go back to their original stance on this issue. Okay? And then, according to Trump, his political will, I think he's going to incur or impose trade or tariffs on all Chinese imports. Yeah. Oh, not 120 billion or 250 billion, and it's not 10% or 25%. And as he promised, I think it's going to be 45% tariffs on all $500 billion worth of Chinese imports. Okay? In other words, the trade relationship, economic relationship between the two countries will end. Okay. Now we have heard that there are some hardliners in China, in Chinese Communist elite, that they are hoping to renegotiate the trade deal. They felt that the deal, the phase one deal, was not favorable in China's favor. Now with the pandemic and everything, they can renegotiate. They can then take it over, just forget about that and take over, restart the negotiation, and also use that as a revenge to America for Americans in accusation of China on the wrongdoings in the pandemic. I think that's just the power struggle between the communist elite, high-level communist officials. I don't think there's much chance for U.S. China to renegotiate the first one deal, because and back in January, China had a chance of starting some renegotiation, because there's in the contract, in the deal, there's a clause about some unforeseeable, like God, like heaven, like type of a disaster. If that strikes, and then either side can ask to reopen or renegotiate the deal. But I guess the Chinese side did not take that opportunity, even though Trump has had asked them a few times about the how's everything? Can you handle the pandemic? Can you fulfill your promise in trade one, or do we need to renegotiate? And the Chinese side, they said no. Hey, they said the pandemic is under control, and they may be wanting to, the communist elite may be in the hope of or trying to save face or save their own power, and they refuse to renegotiate. Now, the, the time is gone. That was then. This is now, and there's really no opportunity for them to not at this moment to ask the U.S. to restart a new talk on a phase one deal after the pandemic has cost the United States so many lives and so much in economic losses. So therefore, that's why I'm saying that the phase one deal between the two countries probably will be in default. That's all I have for this episode of Opinions New by Dr. Frank Shay. I'll see you next time. Bye.